Hey, it's Angie, and welcome back to the show. This week on the podcast, I am joined by Katie Fogarty. Katie is the host of A Certain Age, an age-positive podcast that helps you live your best evolving midlife and that celebrates women who are aging out loud. She is also the creator of the Instagram community Age Out Loud that spotlights women reimagining midlife, and that account is at Let's Age Out Loud. A former journalist turned career coach, Katie's day job, helping executives create strong LinkedIn profiles, has taught her that not everyone is up for owning their age. She created A Certain Age to shift the dated narrative that aging makes you irrelevant. Hallelujah. A super fan of second acts and career evolution, Katie has worked as a TV news writer for global PR firms on Capitol Hill and as an English teacher in Japan. Her coaching company, the Reboot Group, has helped over 2,000 executives from Fortune 500 companies grow through better career stories. A New Yorker by birth, Katie now lives on Long Island with her husband, 3 kids, and a pandemic puppy named Lila. In this episode, we talk about the fear of losing marketability in the workforce, doing the inner work of facing your own biases around your age, the myths of ageism when looking for work so you know what to look for, and a beautiful story from her podcast of resilience and truly knowing what you need, even in the face of big challenges. No matter if you are stepping back into the workforce or have no desire to step in at this stage, Katie gives us clarity and really useful tools to age out loud anywhere we show up. Please enjoy this lively discussion with me and Katie Fogarty. Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Well, you are someone that I have been following for quite some time, and I have to tell you that you are one of the people that inspired me to start my podcast. I was, kind of looking out around there and seeing what people were up to, and I just really loved what you were doing and like how you were going about it and the content you were providing. And it's like, okay, this is a thing. I think I can do this. So thank you on a personal note of thanks.
Well, I'm so delighted to hear that. And I'm so thrilled that you jumped in the podcasting pool because I think it's such a blast. I've met so many amazing people. It's just been such a joy to connect with women in midlife. And it's been such a creative endeavor. And the more people are podcasting, the better. So, congrats on the launch of your show. I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much. And I think we can all get into this, or I know I can, and some of the women that I talk to can get into this space of, well, there's already so much out there. We're all talking about the same thing. But you know what? No, because each of us has a different voice. Each of us is bringing our own experience. Each of us is going to have a different conversation, even with the same person that might be over here. I mean, I know in my own life, I listen to the same person on 12 different podcasts and love every single one of them, right?
So yeah, absolutely.
So it is interesting to see that.
It's such a great point. I think sometimes we can stop ourselves from trying new things because we think it's been done before. And that's not the case. Just because someone's written a book about, love doesn't mean you're not going to read another book about love or another beach book. There's always room for more voices. And I say something to I have 3 kids. They are 22, 20, and 16. And I say something to them all the time that drives them crazy, which is there's enough sunshine for everyone. Right? It's not a finite resource. Having conversation, sharing your thinking, connecting with amazing people. It's not finite. There's always room for more. More is better.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Completely. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you have come into the podcasting world. And I know that you're a coach and consultant and have something called the Reboot Group. So I'd love just some context about your story and how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a 20, probably at this point almost 30-year career in communications. I have a master's in broadcast journalism. I used to write the morning news in New York, and I've worked for big and small PR firms. And probably 8 or 9 years ago now, I launched the Reboot Group, which is a consultancy that helps people tell career stories. I help people with professional branding, using LinkedIn as a tool to share your career story, using it as a tool to communicate about your career, and just sort of branding that allows you to continue to have be relevant and marketable. And so in doing this, I had a number of conversations with clients that were really concerned about ageism. So I always say that my podcast, even though it's my sort of my side hustle, my creative project, it really grew out of my day job. Because in my day job, I was hearing a steady drumbeat of fear around ageism, about the loss of relevancy as we age in our careers, the loss of marketability, and this fear. And I was really bummed out by this, because I don't look at my clients as being too old. I think of them as incredibly experienced or having lived wisdom. And so that was really my aha moment when I decided to launch a podcast that really was sort of shouting out all the exciting things that people are doing in midlife, all the ways that we're reinventing and being creative, launching businesses, trying new things on for size. And so that sort of brings me where I am today. I launched my podcast about 3 years ago. I've recorded 130 shows featuring women in midlife. And I still have my day job of helping people share their professional stories, on LinkedIn and through other avenues.
It's interesting. I do have several friends who are, at this stage in life, they have possibly more time on their hands. Their children are getting older. They may be contributing to a lot of different parts of their life in a lot of different ways, and freelancing and such, and are looking to possibly get back into the workforce. Mm-hmm. And they're finding resistance not only in themselves, but also in the workforce. And it's this interesting path to walk. So I'd love to know, what did you tell the women that were coming to you with this kind of either fear or resistance around, I don't know if I'm marketable right now?
Right. Such a good question. And I should say that in my day job, my podcast features only women or, gender expansive guests who identify, as female in some way. But my day job is helping people across gender. So fear around ageism, while gendered ageism is worse for women in some ways, men have the same set of fears. I hear this from male clients as well. So, for clients that feel like there is this loss of relevancy and that it's hard to get hired after a certain age, I would say you're not mistaken. Ageism is real. It's definitely an issue in the work. It's definitely an issue in the work world. Having said that, there is always room for talent. There's always room to contribute, and people do get hired at all ages. At sort of all levels. It is possible to find new work, to get hired really at any age. So I would say you have to do some inner work. If you think you can't, you're right. If you think you're too old for something, you're going to be telegraphing that. So you need to, sort of get confident in your skills. What you have to offer would be a starting point. Mindset can feel somewhat woo-woo, but I think that is really the starting point. Like, you need to believe that it's possible to find work to contribute as a starting point. Then number two, you need to learn sort of some of the myths around ageism that are getting in your way when you're job hunting. People are never going to look you in the face and say, I'm not hiring you because you're over 50, right? Because first of all, that's illegal. You're not allowed to discriminate against somebody on the basis of their age legally. But, if a job hunter is concerned about this, you should be smart about what some of the myths are. One of the myths are that your skills are dated and, and that you're sort of out of touch. So you should, it's really incumbent upon anyone who's looking for work at this age to keep their skills fresh, to either reskill or upskill, upskilling, adding new skills. If you're a computer programmer, make sure you're adding new skills. If you work in a corporate setting, make sure that you're up to date on, workflow tools and how people, work today. It's never been easier to add new skills. It's never been easier to continue to upskills, presenting skills, communication skills. The way that we work and communicate is constantly evolving. So make sure that you are, current and fresh. And one of the other big myths around older workers is that you're too expensive, and potentially that it's really, you're not going to be comfortable working with people that are younger. And so the myth of being too expensive, you have to recognize that if you're adding value to an organization, then you're worth the money. So you have to figure out very clearly, like, how am I solving somebody's business problems, their business challenges? How could I communicate that in a way that I don't seem too expensive, that I seem worth it? And you have to figure out ways of communicating that you belong in our 5-generation workforce, right? We are really the first generation to have 5 generations in an office space, right? We have kids right out of college who are in their 20s, and then we have people at 50, 60, and sometimes beyond. So if you show that you are mentoring, that you're sort of reverse mentoring, that you might be being mentored by younger people in your organization, that you're able to behave and belong in that space, I think these are all things that can help you land jobs. So, getting a job at any age is work. And I think that you just need to figure out, how do I communicate what I offer an organization? And how do I mitigate against some of the things that might, put me out of the running? You probably did not expect that I was going to share all of that with you.
That's awesome.
But it's a lot of information. But I would say to people, I see people every day getting hired. So, believe that it is possible. There are organizations that help people reskill, upskill. There are wonderful books about being an older worker. I've had Carrie Hannon on my show, who is a finance and career expert. Her name is Kerry. Her last name is Hannon, Hannon. She has written several books on finding work over 50. It's an incredible resource. I would encourage anyone who's thinking, I want to get back in or I want to stay in for the long haul, to take a look at her books. They offer great information.
That's wonderful. And I'll make sure to look that up and link that in the show notes here as well. So thank you for that. A couple of things came to mind when you were talking about mindset before. Well, I'll go all down the woo route, so there's no worries there.
I like woo.
We can do that all day.
There's nothing wrong with being woo.
No, exactly. But it reminded me of having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, yes. Carol Dweck's work. And sure. It's keeping that curiosity and keeping that growth mindset of, okay, maybe there are things I need to learn. Maybe there are new ways to establish a foundation so that I can put myself forward in a way that's fresh, and not see that as I don't know enough, or that I'm old, or that I'm this or that. It's just like, no, it's just a new opportunity. It's just a new opportunity to educate myself and grow and move forward in a new way. And the second thing was, are you familiar with Chip Conley and the Modern Elder
yes.
Academy? Yes.
Yes.
So Chip Conley, for the audience, was a hotelier. I'm not pronouncing that correctly. But he sold his hotel business and went to work for Airbnb as a consultant. And the younger founders of Airbnb termed him their modern elder. And I love that. So when it reminds me that, as people that are over 50, either working for ourselves and, as an entrepreneur, making those connections, or as someone who's going out into the workforce, is having that kind of modern elder mindset. Like, that's actually been really helpful for me and for people that I know and who are looking to pivot in their careers or go down different avenues in their careers, is to see themselves in that way and still be open to learning from people younger than us, and not just labeling them as millennials or entitled or this thing or that thing, and which is ridiculous, because we can always be open to learning from anyone, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, Chip Conley is a great example. I actually read an article he wrote where at first he sort of bristled against the idea of being a modern elder, because he was sort of put off by the words, but then he embraced it. And that was so smart. He's built a wonderful training, kind of learning organization that allows people to kind of reskill and think about how they're using their next chapters. I would also say that if any one of your listeners is looking to return to work after a career break, people step off the workforce for all sorts of reasons, caregiving for children or caring for aging parents, or perhaps being a trailing spouse if you relocated for your partner's work. And oftentimes people step on and off when they're dealing with healthcare challenges. All of these things happen to women and men as they move through life. So if that is your listener's circumstance, I would say check out the company called I Relaunch. That's lowercase I Relaunch. And that was started by a woman named Carol. I'm forgetting her last name right now. But Carol has a very, very popular TED Talk called The 40-Year-Old Intern. So she was a lot like Chip Connolly. She went back as a 40-year-old to intern at a company and position herself to return to work. And when she did that successfully, she realized this is a model that can help other people. There's opportunities to try on new careers for size if your finances in life allow that, and you can sort of pivot into something new. So Chip and Carol are great examples of people who have started something new, switched lanes, and returned to work, and now help other people do that as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll definitely look that up as well. What are you most passionate about right now? Like, it could be in your personal life, your professional life. Like, what's really lighting you up?
This is such a tricky question because I feel like I'm the kind of person that always has 19 things, that are lighting me up for good or for bad. Like, I have too much going on sometimes. I'm like shiny object syndrome. Mm-hmm. So many things are exciting to me. I would say right now, personally, I'm very excited about some writing projects that I've taken on. I am writing and contributing to some other people's work that they've asked me to kind of, share my voice and share my story. And I'm trying to be disciplined about sitting down and writing a book of my own. So that's really lighting me up. It's giving me just sort of creative juices, and I'm excited. What's lighting me up in terms of my work, in terms of the podcast, is I've launched a sister account called Let's Age Out Loud, which is an Instagram community that spotlights even more women in midlife. Because, Angie, I know you know this. When you're doing a podcast, it's one guest once a week. It's, a lot of work to create a show and put it out. And I have learned that I could talk to an amazing woman in midlife who are doing incredible things, who are thriving, pivoting, reinventing every day of the week. 7 days a week, 24/7, I could be talking to incredible women. And so I created at Let's Age Out Loud over on Instagram so people could opt in and share their stories. And it's been really, really fun. There's a little, you hit the link in the bio at Instagram. There's a little form you can fill out. You can kind of auto-populate your story. And then I create a quick Instagram reel and share it. And it's been so fabulous to see women I don't know dropping into this form, sharing their story and their pictures. And it's been such a treat. I featured women who have, left Canada and moved to Paris, or, a nurse who started a travel company, somebody who was a stay-at-home mom who became a stylist. There's just people are doing all sorts of interesting creative things. And I so love hearing people's stories. It gives me, on days when you're feeling like low energy, just hearing what other women are doing and how they're just changing their lives and sort of embracing it and living it so vibrantly always makes me happy and gets me excited.
Absolutely. And that's really one of the main reasons I started this podcast, is because yes. I just know, walking around in my own life, how many amazing people, humans and women, are, especially in this midlife area stage, are doing so many fascinating, wonderful, wonderful things and really important work. And some yes. of it can be, in quiet pockets in these corners that no one knows about. And I'm like, oh my God, everybody in the world needs to hear you. Like, we need your voice out there. And so I love that you have that sister platform. That's very cool. Great idea.
I would invite all of your listeners to come over and check it out, but also share their stories, because I find it truly inspiring. I was a little bit inspired by Humans of New York, which is one of my favorite Instagram accounts, where, incredible stories are surfaced about people, just with sharing very, very intimate snapshots of their lives that just make you feel better about humanity, because we all read the news. Sometimes it's challenging to feel better about humanity. And I think particularly in midlife, when so much of the pop culture messaging that we receive, and the messaging that we potentially receive in our offices or in our work organizations, that we are aging, sometimes can make you feel diminished. So it's extremely important, I believe, to follow social media, to engage with accounts, to hear stories and listen to voices of people that see this as an age with challenges. Of course, we have menopause, we've got aging parents and retirements, and there's a whole host of challenges, but it's also incredibly vibrant time. It's exciting. There's a time of confidence and resilience and creativity. And as you shared at the top of the show, some of us have more time. The silver lining to perhaps having our children age and require less of us if we're parents is that we have more time to devote to other things. I think getting to midlife is very clarifying. We see what we love to do. We've learned what we don't like to do. We often choose to put our time and energy towards things that really light us up. I have featured so many women on the show who have resurrected things that they loved doing in their past that they'd set aside for many years while they were building their careers and their families. I featured a woman who became a novelist, a stay-at-home mom who launched a party company. These are women who've always wanted to do these things, and they got to a certain age and they thought, I finally have time and the confidence and the recognition that if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it at all. So it's, I don't know, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I love that idea of resurrection. So I'm wondering, can you think of, or do you have a story or an example of like somebody that did something not crazy, but just really surprising? Like it could be from the show or in your own life, just as a demonstration.
Right. Well, one of the guests that I come back to a lot is an event planner named Meryl Brown. She was wonderful. She was a stay-at-home mom for 13 years, and this story stuck with me, I think, because we tell ourselves stories and it's hard to get back to work, and it is, because I've done that myself. I have kids, as I shared, who are 22, 20, and 16, so I've left and re-entered the paid workforce twice, so I know very well how hard it is. But Meryl was a stay-at-home parent for 13 years, and then she launched this party company that she grew into a multi-million-dollar company over the years. But right before she launched her very first event, she had a crushing family loss. And people said to her, you don't need to launch this company. Like you should be dealing with this personal situation. And she just said, no, like I'm in action and I need to keep going. And I think it's just, to me, it's such a beautiful story because it's a story of resilience. It's a story that any one of us can use, because I think that we all learned the lesson that Meryl learned, which is that resilience is a muscle. Like you can go through hard things and it makes you stronger. And by navigating hard things and coming out on the other side, it's easier to do it the next time. So I love this story for so many reasons, because it's a story of resilience. It's a story of reinvention. I personally identify with it because I have been a mom who stepped off and re-entered. So I feel like it's a really inspiring story. That's a personal favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really beautiful. I just made me think, do you have, I mean, I know we all have a story of our own, a personal story that's, something that we went through, that we looked back on the other side and we thought, oh yeah, I did that. And it speaks to resilience. And also, like the story of Meryl that you were just saying, that really knowing yourself, like really getting to a place of knowing, no matter what's happening in your life, what's occurring, no, this is the path that I need to take. And when people around you are saying, are you sure? Or you shouldn't do that right now, or have this, different opinions, out of love and care most of the time.
Sure,
and
exactly.
Just wanting to love us and protect us and care for us, but really knowing yourself and standing that ground and saying, this is actually what I need to do, no matter what.
Yeah. I think that,
so I'm
that
curious
kind of
about your own story.
Later. Yeah. I think that confidence comes later. And I believe that confidence comes from doing. I know a lot of people act like there's some kind of confidence code, and if you do these 3 things, you'll be more confident. But I really feel that confidence comes from doing and maybe failing and or not having it go well, and then getting up and dusting yourself off and doing it again. It's all a big cliche. Some of the big themes in my life that I look back and realize those are the experiences that I went through that were hard, that put me where I am today. First, I lost two really good friends, like close friends, my best friend, from growing up, elementary through middle and high school, to cancer before we were sophomores in college. And then another very close friend was killed in a car accident. And the experience of losing two very close friends before I was even 21 really taught me that every day is a gift. And that is absolutely informs my spirit around aging. Every trip around the sun is to be celebrated. I think I don't have the same fear of getting older that I sometimes hear from other people, because I've seen what it looks like not to have that opportunity. So, that has definitely informed my outlook and really why I do the show in so many ways. But I would say sort of personally, like on a professional experience that I went through, I used to have a terrible fear of public speaking. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be called on in a meeting, and I definitely didn't want to be on a stage. And I had this story that I was telling myself that I was not good at public speaking. And I told it to myself for so long. I believed this story to be true, like it was fact. And I had a conversation one day with a very good friend who's been a guest on the show, a woman named Lisa McCarthy, who is a kind of a global sales trainer and a motivational speaker. And I said to her, and we also, by the way, like are tennis players together and really dear friends in our personal lives. And we were probably at a tennis lesson. And I think I said something like, well, you're just like a naturally good speaker. And she stopped me and said, no one's naturally good at this. You have to really practice. And I was like, I'm such an idiot. Why? Like, I'm such an idiot. Of course. Like, no one wakes up with an awesome serve or an incredible backhand. Like, I've been doing 15 years of tennis lessons trying to get better, because I recognize you have to put the work in. You have to do the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours, to achieve competency, let alone greatness at something. And I was like, okay, I need a do-over. And I literally hired a speech coach, and I was like, make me present. And I put the work in. I worked with several different speech coaches. I started small. I've been on stages speaking to 2,000 people. I will say I'm a little nervous every time, but I can do it. And I do it well, because I put the work in. So I think this is such an important story for anyone, because it's very easy to look at people who are like on the stages or launching the podcast or writing the books and to think that's easy for you. You can do that, but I can't. And the answer is anyone can do it. Like put yourself in action, get the tools, take the steps, learn how to do it. We can do hard things, and we can do things that we've told ourselves we can't do.
I'm like clapping over here. You can't hear. I'm like, yes. It's so true, because number one, we don't always know how to do everything ourselves, and we need help, and we need to ask for help.
Yes.
Right? Like Roger Federer, who is one of my favorite tennis player of all time, knows how to hit a tennis ball.
Sure.
And he still has a coach, or had a coach before he retired.
Yes.
He still has a coach. He still has someone to help him see what he can't see himself.
Yes.
And so asking for that help, like you said, you got a speech coach. Brilliant. Of course you did. And then practice and practice and practice and practice, because yes, correct. We don't just wake up as a thing. I mean, maybe some people do, but most of us don't. And that's just amazing. And that we can start, and we can start anytime. So I would love to know what you would say to someone who's in that space right now of, okay, I want to start something new. Maybe I'm in my 50s, but oh my God, starting all over, how long is that going to take? I don't want to take the time.
Yeah. I think it's really tricky, because I think it depends upon what you're starting, because, we need to be real. if somebody says, I'm doing X job today, but I want to be doing Y, it's, but in a totally different field, it's, you know, do you have the savings? Do you have the financial wherewithal to make a big pivot? What does this mean for your family? So there's desires and reality, but I do believe that there's always a way to do a version of what you're really interested in. So, if it may be too late to become a foreign correspondent, but you could start travel blogs. There's just different, like if your itch is to, to travel the world and share stories and dispatches from abroad, you could do it in a different way. But, maybe if your bent is more like political science, maybe you could teach a class or take a class. I mean, there's just different ways to get involved. In whatever it is that you want to do, that's sort of realistic. So it really just depends on what people want. But I would say, regardless of what you want to do, whether it's launching a creative project that you aren't doing, returning to work, switching jobs, figuring out a new way to find purpose, there's some common themes that work for everybody. I would say, get started, put yourself in action, research and learn a little bit. Don't go so crazy that all you're doing is looking into it versus acting on it. But, start to figure out who out there. You reached out to me and said, I've launched a podcast. Can we talk? I would love to have you. And I was like, of course. You know why? Because people were generous to me when I started. So find people that are doing what you care about and figure out if you can learn from them. Number two, this is something that anyone could use to do anything. If you want to lose weight, find a job, start a podcast, write a book, find an accountability partner. Right? You need to find somebody who's going to hold your feet to the fire. This is for anything you want to do in life. Find an accountability partner that you are going to, sort of report to. When I launched this podcast, it was during the pandemic. And if you were standing within 6 feet of me, which you weren't supposed to be doing, I was telling you I had launched a podcast. I was like, hey, in the grocery store, like, guess what I just did? I launched a podcast. And I was like, oh my God, I better keep going, because I had told people this. I had told my friends, I told my family. I actually hired an audio engineer that I've worked with on 130 shows now. I worked with him. I hired him to do 4 or 5 shows before I even launched. I was like, let me put a little money. That's going to make me accountable. So I would say, what it is. Figure out who you should be reporting to, who you're going to make your partner in this, and make sure that you don't keep your vision for your future as a secret that only you know. Pull people in and get them to help keep you accountable, because that does really work.
Yeah, I love that. Those 2 things, action and accountability.
Yes.
It's action, stay in action, stay in action, stay in action. And then once we get in action and stay there, all of a sudden things will start to come into place. And it will seem like it's out of nowhere, but it's actually all the seeds that you've planted along the way that you may not even
100%.
remember, right? And then the accountability of, okay, I'm in action, and to stay there, being accountable to someone else or social media or whatever it is that you want to do to keep that going. And yeah, I mean, action is the key to everything. I think.
Yeah.
Not action enough that you're like burning yourself out, but like, small actions keeping you going.
Small baby. Everything requires, it's like that old joke about how to eat an elephant, don't you? One bite at a time. Like you need to large projects require small steps to get you there. I would also say, it's important to, calendar. I've learned that myself too, like bust out a calendar. Put down what it is that you need to get done, schedule it. For me, what gets scheduled gets done. So that's another tool that people can use, but it's sort of the actions, the accountability. And the other thing that I would also say to anyone who's thinking about something new, and this again could be used for whatever it is you want to do. Again, tackle a health challenge, find a new job, launch a creative project. It is to not be obsessed with how it's all going to end. Right? You don't have to know how something's going to end to get started. Because as a recovering perfectionist, I would sometimes think like, well, how am I going to make this perfect? And then it would stop me from getting started. And so I would say, don't don't obsess about outcome. At the beginning, I would say get started, get in action, because then outcome will be produced as you keep moving along. And you may be surprised by where your actions take you. When I launched this podcast, I had no idea I'd be doing it 3 years later, that I would have joined a small podcast network, that I would be, on a publicity list for Penguin Random House, and that they would be reaching out to me to give me authors. Like, none of that was in my vision about how this was going to start, but I kept going, and it picked up, traction, and it got going. And my hope is that a year from now, I'm doing something with a podcast that I don't even envision today, right? Because I just keep having new conversations, talking to new people, opening new doors, creating work of value, doing things that excite me and light me up. And that is going to take me places that I can't even yet foresee. So that's another bit of advice. Don't obsess about the ending before you even begin.
Exactly. Not being attached to the outcome. Yeah. Right. Like having the vision, I think is important. Like having a vision, a direction that you're pointing yourself that you want to go, and then take the baby steps, and then not being attached to the outcome. Like, oh, yes, look, my steps are now taking me in a sharp left turn, but this actually feels right. So maybe the vision is over here now. So exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And consistency and curiosity too. Like staying with it, being consistent.
Consistency. Yeah. That's the hardest thing. I'm telling you right now, launching a podcast, as you know, Angie, I'm sure, is an astonishing amount of work. So that's part of what I said earlier. Be realistic. Think deeply about, like, well, what is it that you want to do, and what is your bandwidth for maybe tackling some of your projects, and then figuring out a different way to do what lights you up. If an Every Monday podcast is not one of them, because it's a ton of work.
Yeah, it is. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being on the show. This has been so valuable. And if you're able to share, if you're willing to share, what's next for A Certain Age, the podcast?
Well, I'm going to continue to make amazing shows every Monday. I talk to women who are reinventing. I talk to experts who help women thrive. But my next goal is to try to capture this in this book that I've been talking about. So I am making you, Angie, my accountability partner. You better come back to me and say, where's your book? Because that's something I would really love to do. It's been a dream for several years to write a book. My mom's a librarian. My dad's a book junkie. I adore books, and I know how transformative they can be. And so that's my goal, is to try to create something that I could see on a library shelf.
Beautiful. Well, yes, I will be emailing you or messaging you saying, okay, what chapter are we on? When can I expect it?
Me.
That's poke right. Me. When can I expect the preview? Exactly. All right, Katie. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for all that you're doing in the world. It's creating so much value for me and for so many other people. And it's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
Angie, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. Thank you again.
I'm back. Did you know that I have a newsletter? Well, I do. Please go to angiebird.com/subscribe and sign up to get my weekly love notes and any other events or offerings or anything else that's coming up for me. Receive those weekly and stay in the know. And also, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your shows. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to see these shows, and share with your friends. Follow me, Angie.Bird, on Instagram. This helps the show gain momentum and helps other women out there who are looking to bring some magic and mayhem into their lives as well.